kita melihat suatu hal yang sangat parah di negara kita pada saat ini, yaitu anak-anak keracunan, anggaran negara boncos, IHSG menurun, rupiah melemah. Dan tentu saja retorika seperti kita memberi makan anak-anak, kita kasih makan anak-anak, itu masih bergema di antara buzzer-buzzer yang wis, open your eyes, buka mata lo gitu. Udah parah ini di mana-mana.
Program-program seperti MBG itu bisa diintrusi oleh kepentingan parpol. Nanik sendiri sudah mengatakan, walaupun dia di sana ya, MBG itu susah dihentikan karena polisi, TNI, dan parpol itu sudah bermain di situ. Itu bukan tempat bermain parpol, TNI, bukan tempat bermain polisi, tapi itu tempat bermain sipil. Seharusnya MBG itu bisa mendevelop market-market yang ada, tapi tidak, malah menguntungkan penguasa gitu.
Hello everyone, how are you doing today? Good, good weather. Thank you so much for coming here. How many of you are coming to Ngobrol Yuk for the very first time? Can I have a show of hands? Pressure-nya lumayan juga ya. Okay, yeah. That's probably about 60-70% of you. Let me introduce myself. My name is Alvin. You can call me Alvin. I am the writer of Econ for Introverts, which is I guess you can call it an educational platform, excuse me, that I created about 3 years ago in both Medium and Instagram. We started on Instagram and then we migrated from we started on Medium and then we migrated from Medium to Instagram. And that's where the growth kind of took off. Now I've been saying we. When I say we, I mean me and my fiancée Fiona, right there. That's my fiancée. I'm actually marrying her in exactly 2 months, August 21st. So, thank you. Don't clap just yet. Okay, what else? So yeah, that's Econ for Introverts. Now, Ngobrol Yuk is a community event that we're building. This is our third event. The first was attended by 15 people, 15. The second was attended by 30. Now we have over 50 people. So we're very grateful that you guys came here today. We're obviously not as big as some other platforms, such as my friends on my left over here. They're much bigger than me in terms of followership and in terms of influence, probably. Oh, Daniel, yeah, bigger than Daniel, and also Kevin. Not as big as Bocor Alus, also, of course. Tempo, I'm much smaller, but limited as our followership may be, I'm still so proud of the people that we get to meet, people like you guys, and the community that we have built and can continue to build in the future. I have a few friends that I want to introduce you to. We have Buzzer here from Basetindo. We have Xander. We have Daniel Limantara, my new brother from another mother. And we have Mas Sheronaf, Kevin Sheronaf. I'd like them to just take a couple of moments to introduce themselves if they want to, if that's okay. Buzzer, do you want to start? You need no introduction, but please just introduce yourself.
Hello guys, this is my first time technically here. I'm Buzzer. I'm a host from the Baseless Indonesian show. Nice to meet you guys. So what I do is that I sometimes advocate for government things. So actually this is my second time going to Tempo. Fun fact, right? Yeah, this is my second time going to Tempo. My first time was I was still a 21-year-old student. I was still a Marxist and a council communist at that point. I read Panacook and I tried to apply for a job in Tempo and they rejected me 3 times. So I decided to be a pro-government buzzer. Right, nice to meet you guys.
Hey everybody. My name's Zonda Botes, or you can call me Xander if it's easier for you. I don't know how to introduce myself. I make content on Instagram, TikTok, other places. Mostly, I started as just saying, "Bang, bahasa Inggris niya," whatever, and then translating things, right? and then I kind of moved on to like some neutrally political things and economics and stuff like that. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I don't have that much interesting to say, so yeah, that's it from me.
Kayaknya aku pakai bahasa Indonesia aja ya. Kurang bagus bahasa Inggrisnya daripada kuping kalian rusak. Jadi yang mending pakai bahasa Indonesia. Halo teman-teman semua, nama aku Kevin Nguyen. Atau ada yang pernah lewat di TikTok juga. Dulunya aku oposisi zaman Jokowi. Pernah juga jadi sampul majalah Tempo. Tapi sekarang jadi government. Di government bersama Presiden Prabowo dan Voters 02. Aku aktif di bidang komunikasi politik dan public relations terkait hubungan antara government dan juga masyarakat. Terutama sekarang kan banyak banget komunikasi publik yang buruk ya dari pemerintah. Makanya itu harus dicebokin dan dibersihin. Makanya intinya sih seperti itu ya guys. Jadi aku membantu untuk supaya setidaknya nggak blunder-blunder amat lah. Intinya seperti itu guys. Thank you.
Alright. Bingung sih gue mesti pakai bahasa Indonesia atau bahasa Inggris. Tapi karena ini tempo English ya. So yeah, let me use English. Meskipun aksennya agak gitu ya. So yeah. Hello everybody, my name is Daniel Limancara. Wah, Daniel Limancara banget ya. I am a founder of Neo Historia Indonesia. So basically speaking, I just a man that cannot move on from the past. So yeah, I love history and I believe that history is a key for us to create a better future, including by recognizing the pattern from the past. And then we can create a better decision today and we can create a better future tomorrow. That's my motto. So nice to meet you guys. This is my first time in Ngobrol You and I hope there will be a second time, fourth time until Indonesia become great again. Okay. Thank you so much everybody. Nice to meet you.
I'd like to open the floor to anyone who wants to introduce themselves. Lumayan ada 40, maybe 50 something people if you want to plug in whatever you want to do. Yes, Nadi ya. Nadi, ya.
Selamat sore semuanya, perkenalkan nama saya Nadi. Saya dari Tangerang Selatan, pengen kesini, pengen ngelihat referensi dari Jakarta mungkin. Karena saya ngelihat sebenarnya di Tangerang Selatan banyak talenta muda, tapi karena nggak ada wadahnya, therefore we go to Jakarta. Dan kayaknya kita butuh lebih banyak intervensi muda yang di kota, tapi juga mungkin kadang approach-nya juga nggak harus selalu oposisi gitu, karena itu yang sedang saya lakukan sekarang, intervensi lewat dalam, tapi saya juga bukan part of pemerintah, bermitra mungkin, jadi kita coba intervensi dari dalam, atau kalau misalnya dari luar kita coba secara objektif dan kita juga coba cari kader-kader di pemerintah yang kita se-value. Gitu sih. Oh ya, saya profesinya arsitek, tapi pegiat kepemudaan juga di kota. Ada background duta-dutaan juga. Terus suka ngobrol sama siapapun, sangat ekstrovert. Terus, itu aja. Terima kasih.
Please. Ya Mas silakan.
Okay, so we're taking turns then. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Rio. I'm a freelance researcher in international relations and politics. Not a big time yet, so I'm hoping that I got enough screen time so I can got invited to, maybe one of your podcasts or maybe as a columnist or something. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mas Rio. Anyone else?
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello everyone. My name is Tufail Hafiz Albana. I'm currently pursuing agronomy and horticulture at IPB University. And maybe I'm a fellow at B Visionaries Mercedes-Benz Fellowship. It's basically a platform for you to advocate about sustainability. And I'm also active at Indonesia Youth Coalition to Climate Action. I'm also active at UCAN. So yeah, that's what I do. I have interest in climate action and youth activism. Thank you.
Oke, selamat sore semuanya. Perkenalkan, saya Hakim Cendikia Samputra. I'm an English literature student. Saya jurusan sastra Inggris di Universitas Indonesia. And what I do most is I have a quite a big interest in politics and current issues, and end up like thinking about them 24/7 actually until I can sleep. I'm also, saya juga suka I have a big liking, saya juga suka dalam field seperti debat, MUN dan segala macam, dan nulis di kolom di berita seperti sekarang nih saya mulai nulis karena di kanal-kanal seperti GNFI, dan ya saya juga saya terbuka untuk networking untuk semua orang agar memperluas koneksi saya, dan ya terima kasih.
Mantap, mantap. Tes. Anyone else?
Hello, what's up? I'm Michael Peter Marpong. I live in Jaksel, di Kebayoran Baru. I'm a writer in Substack, so if you look up, just Google my name, Michael P. Marpong, you'll see my writings. I have a novel, I have a blog. A fun fact, I tried cold calling Tempo. I send you all my, curriculum vitae, and you'll never answered. So it's your loss.
By the way, Mike, let me advocate for you. Mike, how many novels have you written?
2, maybe 3.
Each of them is like 1,000-page long, right? I mean, you're
600.
Okay, fine. Potato. You're legit. I mean, world-making, Lord of the Rings, encyclopedic kind of writer. So, I'm just saying.
And just look up my name, and I do a lot of things like content creation, things like that. And if I go through the whole spiel, it'll take way too long, so I'll end it here.
Maybe a couple more from this side.
Halo semua, perkenalkan nama saya Rifa Bahtiar. Saya agak lumayan aktif di IG, ngebahas isu sosial dan dikit-dikit kritik politik. Itu karena saya bosan menggambar. Saya mahasiswi semester 6 di Desain Media Politeknik Tempo. Jadi kalau misalnya para hadirin sekalian naik ke atas dikit, itulah kampus saya. Dan saya bosan menggambar, jadi gimana kalau misalnya kita geser dikit, ini enak nih buat diulik. Dan kayaknya kalau orang-orang dalam tanda kutip orang seperti saya bisa mengerti isu seperti ini, harusnya orang-orang awam juga bisa mengerti gitu loh. Makanya itu yang berusaha saya sampaikan ke orang-orang. Saya pribadi adalah orang introvert, but I like to yap. That's why aku bisa yap di sosial media. Nah, aku tertarik ke sini karena tulisannya Econ for Introverts. That is why. Kata itulah yang menarik. Okay, that is me. Thank you so much.
One more, last one.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Alec. I have a business, also do a bit of content creating, particularly interested in sustainability issues and climate change issues. My current dream is to kabur aja dulu. Yes. Thank you.
We gotta get back to you about that, Alec, after that. Okay, thanks for those introductions. Because this is, by the way, big shout out to Tempo for entrusting us to host this event, by the way. Thank you so much. I can't even believe it's happening. I'm kind of... Anyway, yeah. Because we are at Tempo, I want to actually... I want to ask you guys to open your phones and open up the app or the website if you haven't already downloaded the app. Kalau misalnya website, you go to max.tempo.co. So the article is titled A National Nutrition Feeding Frenzy. Bisa ke bawah nggak sedikit? If you guys haven't opened the app, don't worry, you can look at the screen because I'm just referencing one paragraph here. This is the first sentence of this article, which I want to discuss with you guys. Please feel free to place in your opinions. So, the alleged corruption case surrounding the governance of the Free Nutritious Meal MBG program raises a fundamental question. Was the disarray in President Prabowo Subianto's flagship project merely the result of negligence, or did it reflect malign intent, if not outright malice? embed it in the policy from the design stage. I'll simplify that a little bit, yeah. So was the disarray of President Prabowo's MBG program a result of negligence, or is it malice? There's a big difference here. Let me give you an example from an extreme case. There's 3 different levels of murder. Please don't. I'm not trying to say that MBG is a murderous program. No, but there's first-degree murder, second-degree murder, third-degree murder. What's the difference between all of them? It's the level of intent. First-degree murder is pre-planned, premeditated. Once you get to the third degree, it goes to the level of negligence, recklessness, but it's not pre-planned. And the difference between the punishment from those different levels can be decades, right? So what do you guys think? Is this just a level of negligence, or is there truly malice to silently siphon funds from the public domain to the private pocket from the very beginning, from the design stage of this program?
Whew, tough question, especially since my friend from the government is right here. So I gotta look carefully, of what I want to say next. But I want to ask permission from him. I will say in complete honesty. Is that fine? Right. That's exactly the problem that Prabowo inherited from Jokowi. He inherited a fragile coalition, right? But this fragile coalition, they all wanted access to state budget. It's a politician's nature inside the public sector to always have access to state budget, right? And that's why he instituted the free meals program, because of these 3 points. Now, whether it is malicious or it is negligence, I feel like it's purely it's a subjective opinion depending on the people, right? Because in these 3 things, I don't see that there is any indication that it's negligence or it's malicious. But however, the only thing that us civilians can do is judge is implementation. Right? And what we see in the implementation right now in some areas of MBG, it is definitely poor. It is so poor, right? People get poisoned, some people die from eating MBG food. But there are some places here in Indonesia, and I don't say this because I'm trying to advocate or I'm trying to endorse the government, but there are some places around Indonesia where the free meals program is supported. Why? Because kids get food. And it's such a significant impact towards these kids that these kids are very emotionally attached towards MBG. But there also comes an argument, right? Would we continue a program just because the kids emotionally feel attached to it? Or would we continue the program because it hits the matrix? That it hits the KPI that it sets upon itself. It hits the KPI that a lot of the people inside the civilian sector set down, right? And that's the dilemma that we're facing right now, is that there is plenty of people inside Indonesia who thinks that this program is quite good, right? But they only feel emotionally attached to it. There's a measure of, oh wow, the government is finally here for us. But we also got to remain objective. We're wasting trillions upon trillions of rupiahs onto this program. We're taking money from different sorts of ministry, from the Ministry of Defense all the way to the Ministry of Social Welfare, just to finance this program. And in the end, this program is being used to corrupt some funds. Like, okay, now I'd like to close my statement, right? We can say that it's malicious, but what's the argument to make when the government has moved to arrest the perpetrators of those who what's the word I'm trying to look for? Steal funds from this program. So for siphon funds from this program through, foundational incentives through such funds. So I don't know, like I'm throwing that question to you guys, right? We say that this government, do we say that this government made this program just for the sake for it to take money from the people, right? So that it'll get into the elites' pockets. But then the government did exactly what the people wanted, which is to clean up the mess, right? But what exactly comes next? Right? The people want it to be gone, but the thing is, this is a political will. Some people are attached to the program. And so the question is not focused on the person, the question focuses on the structure and also the implementation that we need to audit. That's basically what I'm saying.
Anyone else wanna? Oh, a few hands. Okay, please, Mas Rio sama Mbak Ita ya.
Because this is my opinion is, I think the president himself is, I would not say it's his negligence, but rather ignorant. So maybe his intention were good, despite of his motivations. We can argue that MBG did positive impact in some areas, but there is a certain level of ignorance by the presidents that this went wrong. And then on the stage of the policymakers, like the middle management, I would like to say yes, it's in negligence and also recklessness. Like for example, there's an argument on why this program is immediately on a large scale, not as a pilot project, maybe in one kabupaten or regency, maybe, but it's directly a huge national project. And then now we talk on the operational level, the low bottom level. Now there is a mix. I think there's a mix between recklessness, reckless endangerment in terms of poisoning, and of course malice itself. Because I am sure, I am confident to argue that some of the owners of this MB kitchen are not doesn't have the right intention to feed to actually do the program. They want the money, you know, because it's not a secret that some of the owners of this kitchen are, you know, tied to either the military or the police or the local bureaucrats or technocrats or something like that. So it is the program. It's really a mix between those ignorance on the highest level, and then negligence on the middle level, and the mix of everything in the most entirely basic level. Thank you.
Right, Mbak Ita di belakang tadi angkat tangan.
Thank you, Kak. The first is that I don't care about intention, because what I know is that let's control what I can control and do not what I can't. Intention is something in people's heart, and we cannot even measure that. So either it is malicious, ignorant, yeah, so be it. Because let's put in another example. If it has malicious intent, but it turns out to be a good program, will the intent will be questionable? I believe we won't. It is only because MBG is such in this disarray. So I think it is something that I cannot control, so I choose not to care about it. My second perspective is that, following what Buzzer said about what to do first about the comprehensive reform, in which also stated in the last paragraph of this article, I agree with what Rio said is that pilot project. I think the government has to, let's say, being wise that things should be start small and then scaling up. That's what a startup doing. And we also know that commonly in Indonesia, private sectors that usually starts from small and then scaling up, doing better than the government. So I think in a wisdom, the government should start using that small numbers, let's say pilot project, let's say in a 3T area, because those areas are the ones are needed. So after those small pilot project, we can scale it up and then scale it up. And then the next thing that the government have to tackle. So what about the SPPG and those people that is already involved in this MBG. So compensate them, because people have their risk management department. I think without any calculation, my assumption, so this is assumption, compensating those people and then doing the pilot project will be much more beneficial to the people of Indonesia rather than, no, this is already a massive, so continue with the massive. I don't think it's a wise choices.
Thank you. That's a very, very interesting point there. The fact that intent doesn't matter, and if the execution had had been right, none of us would care about the intent. That's a very deeply philosophical, logical argument. Speaking of okay, thank you. We have one more other article. Thank you so much for you guys. Daniel, you want to say something?
Yeah,
okay.
I actually have a lot to say. So
okay. I gotta give you this opportunity.
So I just want to be concur with Kak Ita, yeah, and with Bajar also, and Chris, and a lot of things actually happens in our country right now, including this kind of the MBG, MBG, whatsoever. And now we're debating about the intents. Is this malicious or is it just a negligence? I think we just don't care about that. I concur with Kak Ita. The thing is the result. What is the result anyway? Okay, let me speak in Indonesia because I try to translate it back and forth. So, yeah. Jadi,
waduh, gawat nih.
Jadi kembali lagi kita melihat suatu hal yang sangat parah di negara kita pada saat ini, yaitu anak-anak keracunan, anggaran negara boncos, IHSG menurun, rupiah melemah, dan tentu saja retorika seperti kita memberi makan anak-anak, kita kasih makan anak-anak, itu masih bergema di antara buzzer-buzzer yang which open your eyes, buka mata lo gitu. Udah parah ini di mana-mana gitu. I mean like free food program is a good thing. Makan siang gratis is a good thing. Itu bagian dari sosialisme juga. Ya, banyak negara sosialis menerapkan hal seperti itu meskipun banyak yang perlu dipelajari ulang karena banyak yang gagal juga. Tapi let's say kita ambil contoh dari dua negara ini, Amerika Serikat sama Jepang. Tadi udah disinggung sama Bajar ya soal sejarah Jepang bagaimana. Amerika Serikat dan Jepang adalah salah satu contoh negara yang sukses menerapkan free food program. Kenapa? Karena mereka punya basis industrialisasi yang sudah bagus. Makanya anggaran negaranya kuat dan bisa implementasikan program seperti itu. Tapi lihat Indonesia, there is still so many things that we need to fix first. Mulai dari pendidikan, mulai dari bagaimana cara kita mengatasi tukang parkir liar. Ya. Pabrik-pabrik di Karawang sekarang banyak yang tutup, itu aja masih kita abaikan gitu. Tapi kita udah langsung loncat. Saya orang Hokkien, ya. Dalam bahasa Hokkien itu kita ada pepatah pau sua pau hai. Pau sua pau hai itu apa? Mengarungi gunung, mengarungi laut. Artinya apa? To do something so overwhelmingly sampai itu gak dikerjakan akhirnya gitu. MBG ini kan contoh proyek yang pau sua pau hai. Berusaha untuk dari Sabang sampai Merauke menerapkan program yang dimana seluruh sekolah itu mendapatkan makan siang bergizi gratis, which is a good thing, tapi implementasinya kan enggak. Ada bencana logistik yang luar biasa. Ada banyak celah-celah korupsi yang akhirnya terbukti setelah Dadan CS itu ditangkap semua. Berarti apa artinya ini? Kita jangan sampai terjebak dengan pertanyaan apakah Prabowo ini dia sengaja punya malins intense or just negligence gitu. I think it's already a very udah ketinggalan lah itu. Karena sedari awal seharusnya kita diskusikan ini 2 tahun yang lalu saat Prabowo Gibran terpilih, karena memang mereka di programnya memang joget-joget menawarkan itu kan. Dan sekarang hanya terbukti mas. Ketika kita mengkritik dari sekian paslon ini punya rancangan program, they have a lot of the things to offer gitu ya kan. Kita fokus ke ini Prabowo Gibran punya program gitu, makan siang bergizi gratis. Good thing, tapi apakah bisa dilakukan? Itu kan pertanyaannya. Dan sekarang terbukti semua. Banyak anak-anak keracunan, korupsi belak-belakan, dan ini ubahnya adalah SPPG, Satuan Penjilat Prabowo Gibran akhirnya. Sorry to say. Thank you. That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you so much.
Mas Heronaf?
Ini menarik sekali nih pembicaraan yang sangat berat sebenarnya buat saya di sini. Sejujurnya, bayangkan jadi saya dulu. Sebelum itu aku mau disclaimer dulu, aku bakal berbicara atas nama individu, tidak mewakili institusi apapun, tidak mewakili partai politik apapun, sebagai individu sendiri. Pertama-tama, kemarahan teman-teman itu sangat valid. Kemarahan itu sangat wajar. Dan sebenarnya yang paling bisa marah itu adalah teman-teman yang ngevote 02. Karena kita yang berharap banyak nih terhadap program ini. Mungkin kalau teman-teman yang nggak vote Prabowo, vote Anies atau vote Ganjar, mungkin harusnya nggak terlalu kecewa. Yang harus kecewa itu yang berharap banyak pas zaman kampanye kemarin kayak gitu. Dan saya sendiri sebagai pendukung Prabowo cukup kecewa banyak. Sebelumnya tadi ada beberapa kali disinggung soal tata kelola ya, tata kelola dan bagaimana kita harus mengimplementasikan yang versi Jepang. Beberapa kali aku dan kolega-kolegaku di dalam internal pun memberikan tawaran yang sama, memberikan solusi yang sama. Apakah lebih baik kita ikut Jepang aja caranya? Cuma politik-politik seperti ini tidak bisa dikerjakan dari satu suara saja. Banyak kepentingan-kepentingan orang. Tapi yang bisa aku sampaikan dari dulu, kenapa alasan aku pilih Pak Prabowo waktu itu, karena memang program-programnya sosialis. Dan dari dulu kalau kalian baca strategi transformasi bangsa, Paradox Indonesia, whatever it is, buku-bukunya dia itu sama konsisten. Dan kalau aku lihat korupsi di BGN atau MBG ini itu terstruktur oleh para pengkhianat-pengkhianat di dalam internal tubuh politik Presiden Prabowo. Dan itu real. Saya menyaksikan sendiri dan saya udah tahu betul dari awal ini akan seperti apa di 1 tahun pertama. Cuma pada saat itu kita tidak memiliki banyak bukti yang cukup. Karena sekali lagi ya, kan kalau tanpa bukti kita nggak bisa mungkin melapor dengan mudah. Dan proses investigasi kalau bisa dibilang nggak mungkin tiba-tiba misalnya kita tahu ada kejahatan di tempat A, langsung diproses begitu aja tanpa barang bukti kan nggak bisa. Tapi pas 6 bulan yang lalu, setelah data-data sudah terkumpul segala macam, kita menguatkan juga supaya dan meyakinkan Pak Prabowo bahwa ada ABS di dalam tubuh pemerintah ini yang memberikan data palsu, teman-teman. Dan jujur, ini aku berani nih ngomong di sini. Aku harus fair ya, aku ngomong di sini. Terlalu banyak penipu-penipu di dalam kabinet itu. Terlalu banyak. Nggak cuma satu. Aku lihat data-datanya, lihat rilis-rilisnya, ketidaksinkronan data itu juga banyak. Jadi jangan main-main gitu loh. Dan masalahnya ini program, bayangin ya, kita kalau ngomongin korupsi untuk satu hal, misalnya korupsi raket, misalnya ya inilah motor listrik misalnya. Itu kan awalnya programnya untuk makan siang anak ya. Ngapain beli motor trail? Itu dari awal juga udah aneh sebenarnya. Dan saya setuju di situ. Tapi bagaimana ya kalau misalnya orang dikasih data palsu terus terlalu sincere, itu juga berat sebenarnya. Makanya kalau dibilang di awal intention malis atau enggak, menurut aku dari awal Pak Prabowo nggak ada intention ke sana. Toh dari awal dia malah rembes pakai dana pribadi dia untuk bikin trial and error dapur itu. Dia sangat sincere untuk program ini. Dia ngasih berapa ratus miliar untuk ayo bikin. Tapi kan permasalahannya orang yang dia pilih itu tidak sesuai dengan apa yang sudah diamanahkan kayak gitu. Ternyata banyak yang kelak-klik itu ya. Kalau kalian pengen tahu itu di Direktorat Operasional BGN itu ya, itu tinggal kelak-klik titik. Ini aku share di sini. Kelak-klik. Siapa misalnya sama Daniel mau punya dapur, misalnya contoh ya, itu tinggal kelak-klik aja. Klik, oh berapa dapat berapa. Tapi kan itu susah dibuktikan kalau tanpa bukti yang jelas. Makanya di tubuh Prabowo Gibran ini terlalu banyak pengkhianat dan kemarahan teman-teman itu sangat valid. Kita pun di dalam internal teman-teman yang mendukung Prabowo Gibran juga marah, kesal, dan dari awal sudah kesal. Cuma butuh proses untuk membuktikan dan ternyata setelah 1,5 tahun ya baru dah tuh ditindak dengan data-data yang jelas. Jadi kalau menurut aku dari awal kan balik lagi ke temanya ya, intentionnya enggak, tapi tata kelola memang harus diperbaiki karena ini program masih banyak belum sempurnanya gitu. Dan kita butuh teman-teman seperti kalian. Kita sangat-sangat butuh kritik-kritik dari luar. Walaupun terdengarnya bagi kalian nggak didengar kayak gitu. Nggak diinin, tapi itu banyak orang-orang yang di dalam internal tubuh pemerintah yang masih baik yang akhirnya mendengarkan dan mencoba menawarkan solusi-solusi dari teman-teman, dikumpulin, dikompil jadi satu, dipropose kayak gitu untuk jadi alternatif. Kalau dari aku sih kayak gitu ya teman-teman. Thank you.
Sebenarnya aku ada 2 pertanyaan, boleh gak? Just udah habis. Ada 2 pertanyaan.
Okay, very quick,
Very quick,
because
very
Buzzer want to
quick.
say something.
Yeah.
Very quick.
First question is, 1. Kan Pak Prabowo pernah bilang ya, ikan busuk dari kepalanya.
Betul.
Ya. Pertanyaan pertama, apakah Prabowo siap untuk menerima data-data yang benar? Itu pertanyaan pertama. Kedua, it's a good program, right, untuk memberdayakan makanan bergizi buat anak-anak.
Iya.
Tapi kenapa bukan kantin sekolah aja yang diberdayakan? Kenapa harus bikin SPPG baru?
Nah, kalau untuk jawaban yang pertama ikan busuk dari kapal, saya setuju juga. Makanya dari itu kan si Dadan ditangkap, dikasih data pada saat itu ke Jagung, ngasih data ke Pak Prabowo, Pak ini bagaimana? Ini anak buah Bapak, perlu kita tindak atau tidak? Pak Prabowo di situ agak sedih mukanya, kecewa bos, sedih. Karena anak buahnya kayak begitu tiba-tiba kan. Terus habis itu ya udah mau nggak mau ya akhirnya dia tindak, dipenjarakan. Kalau misalnya memang dia pengen mengimplementasikan dan membiarkan selama ini program yang terkorupsi terus tanpa ditindak, ya dia bisa aja membiarkan sampai 5 tahun. Dan kalau memang tujuan intentionnya untuk Pak Prabowo secara individu ya, mengeruk itu secara individu, mengeruk nyari duit di sana, aku nggak yakin. Tapi kalau anak-anak buahnya mungkin ada kemauan di sana. Terus yang kedua soal bagaimana skema tata kelola SPPG itu di awal. SPPG kan tadi aku sudah sampaikan banyak beberapa alternatif yang diberikan. Cuma dalam prosesnya aku tidak masuk ke dalam penentuan ya teman-teman, mohon maaf izin. Karena kita kan juga sudah beberapa kali propose yang versi Jepang tadi. Cuma dalam prosesnya tidak tahu, proses politik kadang-kadang tidak bisa seindah apa yang ada di idealisme kita. Proses politik tidak semudah kata-kata karena di situ banyak kepentingan dan juga stakeholder. Jadi aku rasa itu bukan wilayahku untuk menjawab gitu, Daniel. Thank you.
Buzzer, 1 minute. I'm sorry. No more. We were so over time.
Just a bit, and to address everything that I said, I agree with everything that is said here, but I also want to provide a critique towards the government, right? Masalah MBG itu sebenarnya adalah gejala masa yang lebih besar daripada MBG, daripada programnya sendiri. Ini bukan masalah niat, tapi adalah masalah cara main di dalam politik, gitu. Cara partai politik itu bermain, itu mereka terlalu kuat sampai mereka itu mengintrusi kepada kebijakan-kebijakan seperti ini, gitu. Kekuatan dari partai politik itu mesti dibatasi, mulai dari ketua umumnya mesti mempunyai batasan periode jabatan, sampai pengaruh ketua umum dan pemimpin-pemimpin parpol kepada parlemen. Mereka itu bisa nge-recall anggota parlemen. Gimana parlemen bisa ngebela masyarakat dan konstituen kalau misalkan apa-apa mereka ngeri sama komandannya di atas, takut dicopot gitu. Dan yang parahnya lagi gitu, ini bukan masa struktural aja, tapi ada sebuah informal power structure. Dan ini yang menjadi permasalahan. Ada sebuah bottleneck informal yang eksis, yang nyata, yang di luar struktur yang ada. Jadi nggak hanya gue harus lapor kepada ketua fraksi kalau gue DPR RI, gue harus ngelapor kepada komandan koalisi ini. Siapa itu gitu. Nah, ini yang kita harus atasi gitu. Nah, akhirnya karena pemerintah sama ini dari zaman Jokowi sampai sekarang itu terlalu mentoleransi adanya informal power structure ini. Alhasil program-program seperti MBG itu bisa diintrusi oleh kepentingan parpol. Nanik sendiri sudah mengatakan gitu. Gua rasa Nanik walaupun dia di sana ya, dia sendiri sudah bilang MBG itu susah dihentikan karena polisi, TNI dan parpol itu sudah bermain di situ. Itu bukan tempat bermain parpol, TNI, bukan tempat bermain polisi, tapi itu tempat bermain sipil. Seharusnya MBG itu bisa mendevelop market-market yang ada gitu. Tapi tidak, malah menguntungkan penguasa gitu. Kenapa menguntungkan penguasa? Kenapa bisa? Karena kekuatan penguasa itu tidak ada di checks and balances gitu. Tidak dibatasi. Jadi kalau misalkan selama parpol itu tidak dibatasi kekuatannya, selama polisi dan TNI tidak dihentikan masuk politik ya program-program seperti ini MBG akan terus diintrusi oleh kepentingan-kepentingan elit, mau itu dari elit parpol, TNI, polisi, konglomerat gitu. Itu akan terus terjadi. Jadi kita harus fokusnya ke sebelah sana menurut gua. Kita harus fokusnya kepada membatasi caranya penguasa itu bisa bermain di ranah sipil. Begitu sih. Terima kasih.
on, let's give a clap. Okay, we gotta really move on to the next article, Mas Yuda. Second article. Okay, picking and choosing a finance minister. Lebih dekat ke ranahnya Mas Cesar, ekonomi. You're welcome, Mas Cesar. Ke atas Mas Yuda. Nah, ini subtitlenya aja nih. Bagus banget nih. Indonesia's economic problem is not the finance minister, but Prabowo's determination to push through costly priority projects. Jadi artikel ini menjelaskan waktu itu ada rumor ya bahwa Purbaya mau digantikan, ada nama-nama Hatip Basri, ada Roslan, ada satu lagi siapa Mas? Budi Gunadi. Just to give you a short outlook of the Indonesian economy, ada beberapa yang backgroundnya ekonomi nggak? Background in economics, ada a few, yeah. So a little bit of macroeconomics for those of you who haven't read up on it. Tahun lalu in full year to 2025, Indonesia had a budget a deficit of about 2.92% of GDP, which is just below the legal limit of 3%. So we're perilously close to hit that legal limit of 3% of GDP. 2026, so that was 2025, 2026 projected government revenue 3,100 trillion, projected expenses 3,800 trillion, which translates to a deficit of 700 trillion, which translates to a projected deficit of 2.7% of GDP. Slightly lower, but still pretty close to the legal limit of 3% of GDP. As reported by Tempo, who else? As Q1, the budget deficit is 0.93% of GDP. If you extrapolate that, 0.93 multiplied by 4, something like 3.7%. So in terms of if we extrapolate the budget deficit that we already have now from Q1 to the rest of the year, it's not looking good. And the president is trying to reshuffle the cabinet. To close the loop on this economic discussion, please read this article. Sorry Mas Yuda, naik sedikit. Naik. Title-nya aku sampai lupa. Picking and choosing a finance minister. The heart of this article itu teori dari Hatip Basri. The finance minister job is actually quite easy. You increase funds, you cut spending, or you borrow money. Increase funds is more difficult because there's going to be purchasing power aja lagi rendah sekali. Half of our economy is on consumption. Purchasing power lagi rendah. BBM dinaikin aja sudah begini, apalagi dinaikin taxation, income tax lagi. We cannot increase funds. It's nuts. What do? You can borrow money. Ya kata Mas Cesar lagi, yield curve kita udah naik dan bunga BI juga naik lebih mahal lagi, dan cost of funds is increasing. Dan ujung-ujungnya kalau if you borrow money you have to pay it back, if the interest is higher then you're gonna have even more deficits in the future. Satu-satunya cara apa? Pangkas spending, which sounds easy on paper but ideologically difficult to do. Let's close the loop on the Tempo articles, and I want to move on to the next thing. Jadi this is okay. I think we should clap for brilliant articles by Tempo, Mas Cesar, Mas Krisma, fantastic job, and great writing, great insights.